In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the WALL-E Criterion 4K disc. This was a huge thing that got announced last year. It came out in November. I'm only just getting around to reviewing it now, but hopefully I can help you decide on whether this is worth a purchase and adding to your own collection. Hello, my name's Elliot and thank you for joining me for this video. So yes, we're going to be talking about the WALL-E disc from the Criterion Collection on a 4K Blu-ray. And this was huge news when it was announced. I made a video back then and this completely took me by surprise. I think it took everyone by surprise. No one was predicting a Pixar Disney film coming to the Criterion Collection. In that announcement video, I made a whole load of speculations as to why this is actually happening. So if you want, go back and watch that video for all of that. In this, I'm just going to get into the film itself and what I think about this release. Before we start, I'll just say that I managed to pick this up from a seller here in the UK called Boutique Home Video, no relation to me at all, who sell all of these Criterion discs on eBay. And it's really helpful if you're a UK buyer, because otherwise you have to import them from the US yourselves. You risk lots of damage to the cases, you risk extra fees, hidden custom charges, etc. It can be an absolute minefield. So it's really handy to have a seller who is based here in the UK, who knows that the condition of the discs are, in really good condition, and they can just post them directly to you and they turn up in a matter of days. If you happen to be outside of the UK and you're in the US, I'll include a link to buy this on Amazon if you want to, and it will help support this channel at no additional cost to you. So I thank you for your support. Anyway, let's talk about the film first. I'm going to just pop the case down so my arm doesn't start hurting from holding it up. The film itself, WALL-E, is an absolutely amazing film, if you ask me. And I think it is fully deserving of a place within the Criterion Collection. If you look at Pixar's filmography, many of the films there are absolute modern classics. What this film, WALL-E, nails is that it's great for children and young people, but it's also great for adults, anyone of any age basically. Because for the children, there's lots of fun things going on. There's so much motion, craziness, bright colours and all this. So it's a lot of fun for kids to watch. But then for the adults as well, we can also appreciate how good the animation is, but also the story in this movie, the themes that are present in this story are, things that we can take some time to think about, and it's just an enjoyable thing to watch this film. If you're not familiar with what the story is about, it's set in the future and we follow this robot on Earth and everyone else has left Earth. The robot WALL-E is alone on Earth. And he's like a kind of trash disposal robot. So he takes trash in and makes it into these cubes, to more conveniently store the trash. But he's left alone on Earth. Everyone else has left the planet. He's fine getting on with his daily tasks. But then this spaceship comes down, lands on the planet, and out comes this other robot who WALL-E then takes an attraction to. The story then follows WALL-E on this pursuit of this love interest, and it takes him on a wild adventure into space. So it's a great fun film, but there are many interesting themes packed into this movie. Questions about how we as humans treat our planet and the potential future for this planet if we don't look after it. There's also a criticism of the nature of the consumerist culture that we have in society today. And there's an anti-capitalist strand running through this movie, I think, although it's not completely didactic, because at the end of the day, this is a movie made by Disney, one of the largest capitalist multinational corporations in the world. So that's enough about the film for now. I'm going to get on to talking about the Criterion disc, but I do have an interesting analysis on this film which I'll leave to the end of this video. So if you want to stick around for that, I'm going to be comparing this film to another modern favourite film of mine. So stick around to the end for that if you're interested. So the question is this worth buying on the Criterion 4K disc? Now, the reason this is such a question is because this has already had numerous releases before by Disney on other discs. There was even a 4K disc of this released by Disney a few years ago. So many people are going to be asking, is this worth buying if I already own that other 4K disc? Now, in terms of the picture quality and the audio quality of what is on this disc, it is superb. It probably is the best that this film is going to look and sound, and the animation completely holds up 15 years after the film originally came out. I don't actually have that other 4K Disney disc to compare this to, although I did have a look at what is streaming on Disney Plus, and the 4K WALL-E presentation on there looks very similar to this. I honestly couldn't notice any differences there. So differences there are going to be negligible, so it may not be worth the purchase if you're just looking for some kind of improvement in the picture and audio quality. So the only real other area that would make you consider buying this if you already own WALL-E on the 4K disc is because of the special features in this package. It is quite a comprehensive release, I think. There are plenty of special features that existed on some of those other discs, including a documentary from, I think it was from 2007, the Pixar story. So that's included on here. There are some audio commentaries as well, which are present on the 4K disc. And then on the Blu-rays within the package, there are some extra special features, because Criterion have tended not to put any special features on the 4K discs themselves beyond the commentaries. I think that's just to make it easier to store the actual film on the 4K disc and give it enough breathing room in the encode. I think I'm just talking jargon there. I don't actually know if that's true. But nevertheless, there are some interesting special features included on the Blu-ray discs within this package. There are some new special features which involve director Andrew Stanton taking us through the process of making this film. There is a scene analysis, which is like a masterclass, where he's taking you through every beat in this scene and taking us through step by step and explaining why he made the choices he did in writing that scene. So that is absolutely priceless. I thought it was a brilliant special feature and a great one in particular for any budding filmmakers and screenwriters out there who are looking for some tips on how to write a scene. Andrew Stanton also talks about some of his cinematic influences on the special features, which is really interesting because he takes a lot of influences from obviously silent film classics like Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin, but also he talks about his love of world cinema and how WALL-E was actually very heavily inspired by world cinema. He wanted to make a movie that was like a foreign movie, but without the subtitles. So that's a very interesting feature. And then the other one, which I really liked, was again Andrew Stanton taking us through the tour of the Pixar archive and going through all of the original drawings and designs for this movie and some of the original production details. He talks about the initial character design for WALL-E and where he got the idea for how the character looks. So it's all incredibly fascinating. So all in all, is it worth buying this? Well, that's going to come down to your personal taste. I'm personally very glad to have this in my collection. The film looks and sounds amazing with the Dolby Vision grade and the Dolby Atmos sound. So it probably is the best this film is going to look, I think. And then the addition of the special features, some of the older ones and the newer ones, really make this package worth owning, in my opinion. So with all of that said, let me just share a bit of analysis of this film that I got from rewatching it on this disc this time around. It struck me that the structure of at least the first act of this movie is very similar to another film that came out within the same year of this one. And that film, I mean, it's a totally different film tonally, but I'm talking about There Will Be Blood, the film from Paul Thomas Anderson, which shamefully hasn't had a boutique Blu-ray release yet. I'd love to see Criterion get the rights to do the 4K disc of this if there's been a restoration. That would be absolutely amazing. Both films begin with a protagonist who is in isolation. They are in this deserted landscape and they're quite content being on their own, just getting to work. You know, WALL-E is there, you know, organizing all the trash into those cubes and scavenging for things and taking them back to his little house. Similarly, in There Will Be Blood, Daniel Plainview is getting to work, you know, mining for precious metals, and then obviously eventually he stumbles upon oil. It goes further than that though, because both of these films, due to the isolated characters, are almost completely dialogue free for the first 20 minutes. Both films have been compared to silent cinema and being pure cinema in terms of just watching the visuals and telling the story purely through the visuals. This is only broken in both films by the discovery of something that is unexpected. In WALL-E, it's the discovery of the green plant life that has not been on Earth for a long time. And in There Will Be Blood, it is of course the discovery of the oil deposit underground. Both of these discoveries change the courses of the lives of these characters and take them on an adventure in different ways. These discoveries take both characters into worlds of business and greed and capitalism and a questioning of how we treat our own planet. So in WALL-E, there is of course the spaceship with all of the fat people who are hooked up to all these devices and eating horrible food and living a really unhealthy life. And in There Will Be Blood, it shows how this character becomes consumed with this ambition and this greed, and it destroys the relationship he has with his adopted son and the people around him. And by the end of the film, he is just a shell of a man. Even though he's rich, he is, you know, missing something within him. So yeah, that's just a brief analysis that I took from both of these films, watching them recently. I think they'd make a great double bill, actually. Maybe There Will Be Blood is not one for children, but for any adults out there, could be worth doing on a double bill. If you enjoyed this review of the WALL-E Criterion 4K disc, then check out the video that's presented on screen to you right now. It is my top 10 Criterion Collection releases of 2022. So it's well worth checking out in case you missed any of the great releases from last year. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.